Welcome to the leadership module. I am so delighted and excited to have with me Sadal Neely. Sadal is, first of all, a good friend of mine. We've known each other for 17 years. Yeah. Sadal is the Naylor Fitzhugh Professor of Business Administration at the Harvard Business School. She's also the Senior Associate Dean at the Harvard Business School, and my boss. I report into her, and is one of the leading authorities on leadership and change, digital mindset, and remote work. If you see her CV, it's incredible. If you see her on YouTube, 12 million views about her teaching at the Harvard Business School. So I am truly grateful and blessed that Sadal is with us to talk about her area of expertise, which is leadership.
I'm so happy to be here, Kareem. I'm really excited to talk about leadership and to be with all of you.
Yeah. So what we're going to do in this module is, why should we first care about leadership in the first place? Why do our audience should make this a priority for themselves? Then we'll get into defining leadership. What does it mean? The dimensions of it. Then an essential question that everybody asks: are leaders born or made? I know you have definite opinions about that, so would love to get that perspective. And then we're going to open up the leadership toolkit. What are the essential for aspiring trailblazers who want to be leaders, who are needed to be leaders in their worlds, in their communities as well? So shall we begin?
Let's go.
Let's go.
I'm excited.
So Sadal, you've been studying this for your whole life, and you've also been practicing this for your whole life. Why should we care about leadership in the first place? Why should our audience care about leadership?
You know, leadership is one of those things that's incredibly important because you don't need to have a position of authority to be a leader.
Okay.
You can act like an owner. You can solve problems. You can engage in conversations. You see a problem, you solve it. You need to be a follower. You become a follower in a role of a leader. So leadership is all around us, and it's about not only our personal growth, but it sets us up for actual leadership positions.
Well, hang on a second. You said something profound. You said, you don't need formal authority to be a leader. Can we just double click on that? Because I think when I was their age, a long time ago, I thought leader with a capital L, you had to have a leader or executive, blah, blah, blah in your title, or stand on a big mountain and be the leader. Tell me about this view, because that's new to me.
There's an L in each and every one of us. Okay. There's an L in each and every one of us. And the way in which this L comes alive before we have these positions of authority is by acting like owners, is by feeling a sense of obligation and responsibility. So if there's a problem, you solve it as opposed to being a bystander. If there's a moment when we need to speak up, we need to speak up. And we can do this in our families.
Yes.
We can do this in our communities.
Yes.
We can do this in our schools. And this is where it begins. That L in us can grow into that position of authority, but it's an attitude. It's a behavior. It's a definition that starts out early. So my big advice for everyone, starting from the age of 18 and on, is to begin to act like an owner en route to becoming a true leader with authority.
I love that. So what else? Why else should we care about leadership?
Listen, leadership is really interesting. It's actually a social science. And it starts out, like I said, with ourselves, that L in all of us, and acting like an owner. And eventually, we begin to lead others. And most often, where we see this early on is in teams. Leading teams. And leading teams are defined as 3 people or more.
Yeah.
So if you have 3 people or more and you take on a leadership role, whether it's at school or otherwise, it's really important because, Kareem, if you can lead a group of 3 people,
Yes.
or 10 or 15,
Yes.
you can actually lead an organization of 15,000 people.
Oh, it
You can
scales.
it scales completely. It's the same set of behaviors that scales, because if you can lead those 10 people or 15 people, it is through them that you lead wide organizations. It's through them that you lead communities.
Yeah.
It's through your team that you lead even countries.
Wow. And I guess the thing about why you need to think about teams is because to solve important problems, right, you need a team. You'll need more than yourself. If it was a problem that you could solve yourself, that takes you so far. But problems that are big, that are naughty, that need leaders like you to be engaged, you need to be thinking about teams.
Absolutely. In fact, teams are critical to leverage yourself, to scale. Teams are critical for the division of labor.
Yeah.
Teams are critical in order to achieve much more than what an individual can do. And so how to structure a team, how to motivate a team, how to create the processes by which a team operates is a very crucial function of leaders. So once you establish that you can act like an owner and be an owner, and then the first thing to do is to find ways to lead a very small team. And once you figure that out, you can lead entire organizations.
That's fabulous. So also, I often say that one of the things that leaders need to do is invent the future. Do you agree with that? Is that like, how does that fit within your sort of research and practice of leadership?
You know, inventing the future, these are such intimidating words, right? Inventing the future.
Yeah.
But what it is, it's really determining and thinking about what's in the present and beginning to anticipate
Yes.
what can be possible in the future.
Yeah.
Sometimes is to say, whoa, I see an oncoming train. I see it, others don't. So that's part of the future.
Yeah.
Other times is to say, whoa, I see all these dots. Imagine if we connect them.
Yeah.
What new possibilities can we engage in?
Yeah.
And so part of that is we talk about this in our leadership work here at the Harvard Business School as leaders as beacons.
Yes.
To be able to see the landscape
Yeah.
and to imagine what may be the very next thing that we all need to think about. So
Yeah.
you're right. In a sense, that is inventing the future.
Yeah.
And it comes from understanding the landscape,
Yes.
understanding today,
Yes.
in order to imagine what's for tomorrow, which means we need to be exposed
Yeah.
to a lot of things.
And so this is like setting direction and vision, right? Like part of inventing the future is direction and vision.
It's absolutely direction and vision.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you think about the image of the leader as a beacon,
Yes.
it's the ability to look far
Yes.
and to set a direction and a vision based on not facts that are very much in front of you,
Yeah.
but the facts that you imagine will be in the future.
Yeah.
So if you think about all of the innovators of our world,
Yeah.
those who've invented telephones, those who've invented new ways of doing things. And as you know, we're living at a time where there's so much innovation going on, but it took leaders to be able to see those things.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's also responding to what's here
Yeah.
in an affirmative way. So for example, we know that technology is moving very fast. And leadership requires us to understand those technologies, to start shaping those technologies. That's where vision and direction
But what happens
comes
if
in.
you're not a technologist?
You learn as much as you need to learn.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, there's a baseline.
Yes.
We call it, in fact, the 30% rule.
Yeah, you've done a lot of research on this.
Ton of research. My latest book with Paul Leonardi is called The Digital Mindset. And you learn the baseline or some basics, some common vocabularies, languages around these technologies, and you shape it. That's what it means to be a beacon. You shape it. And to shape it, you have to understand it.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I've heard you say quite a bit when you've been, Sadal talks to leaders everywhere, executives of large companies around the world. You've often talked about like the importance of becoming good at change. So why should our audience care about change management? Because that seems like a thing that companies do. Like old fart company, sorry, your old company around for a while, and then the old line executives say, we need change management. Why should they care about change and becoming good at change?
Change is a fundamental core competency of leadership. Because what is change ultimately? It's improvement. It's either small improvement or big improvement. And change management is actually an entire field.
Yeah.
We can teach a whole module on it, but it's a core leadership competency. Otherwise, you're presiding over something and you're not anticipating the future and you're not making any improvements. So to make improvements, to think about the future, it requires change and change management. And there are two ways to think about leadership. One is leaders or the role of leaders as transactional, which is the presiding over to make sure the trains are running and the buses are running and everything that need to run.
On time. Yes.
On time and adequately. But that's not enough. The world is so dynamic. It changes so much all the time that we need to be ready to improve and change and meet the moment. And at times, we need to transform.
Yeah.
That's why it's a very core competency for leadership, change.
Yeah, like you have to be able to change cultures, organizations, people, their mindsets, their perspectives. And that to me is part of this leadership journey, right? Like how do you actually enable people to change? Because most people tend to, at least what I found in all of my inventing the future activities that she knows all about, that I come to her for therapy, is that you've got to be able to enable others to change, to sort of be comfortable with change, because most people resist change.
People don't love change.
Yeah.
They may say they like change, and
change is good for others, not for ourselves.
Good for others, not for ourselves. And you've heard people say, I love change. I change my hair all the time and change. That's not true. People like predictability.
Yeah.
They like certainty, and they like stability.
Yeah.
Change by definition is not about certainty, is not about predictability, is not about stability. So they resist. And there's always this belief of, if we enact any of these changes, are we actually going to break things that are working? Change is also breaking things that are working.
Yeah.
You're very familiar with that, aren't you?
A little bit. You can ask our dean about that. I think there's a big file in the dean's office.
It's a good file, though.
It's a good file, yeah, but a lot of change.
A lot of change.
So the other thing that I want to sort of add to this about why we should care about leadership is that for the young leaders we're working with, this is about securing your personal future, right? If you invest in learning about leadership, if you invest in practicing leadership, if you invest in actually changing things, then that's going to secure your personal future, because it will enable you to impact the world in ways that others cannot.
Can I add to that?
Sure.
It's also about securing the future of your family. It's about securing the future of your community.
Yeah.
It's, for some people, it can even mean securing the future of your country.
Yeah.
It's a very, very big deal.
Yeah.
So you either are a bystander or an observer, or you can help shape the lives and the future of many others.
Yeah.
So it's about securing your future, and the way you secure your future is by empowering, shaping the lives of others.
I love that. So let's recap. Just even this whole notion about why should we care about leadership. First is you got to act like an owner, right? Second is it's about sort of the team and making sure the team that you put together can actually get the work done. The third is inventing the future, setting the direction and vision, then driving change, becoming good at change, and then securing the futures. Do you have a favorite quote about leadership? Is there anything that sort of stands out to you?
I do. Actually, this comes from one of the former U.S. presidents. I love it so much because you don't have to be a current leader to appreciate what he says. So this is John Quincy Adams.
Yes.
And he says that if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader.
Wow.
You
Can
are
you
a
just repeat
leader.
that again? So if your actions
If your action inspires others to dream,
dream
more,
more, that's the vision. That's like the inventing the future. Yeah.
learn more,
Yes. Yes. Practice.
practice,
Yes.
do more,
Yes. Get more things done. Solve more problems.
and become more.
Themselves. Others becoming.
More.
So part of the leadership is enabling others to become more as well.
Absolutely enabling others to become more. That's what defines you as a leader. Isn't that a beautiful quote?
Yeah, I love that.
I love that quote.
Maybe that should be part of our motto as well of this program. For our program, we care a ton about leadership because I think that is that is a core principle that we're trying to infuse in young people around the world. And for us, this is because we feel, as we've discussed, that these leaders can be community builders. These leaders can be economic catalysts. They can actually have meaningful impact in the economies that they work in. They can be agents of change in their environments, and that's so important because we don't want to be stuck in a static world where technology is changing fast, societal norms are changing fast, cultures are changing fast. You can be the agents of change and actually nudge the change in the direction you see important. And that also you can be a skill amplifier if you act as a leader, not just for yourself, but for others. And then finally, I really feel like you can be a global collaborator, right? You can learn from other peers from around the world. And because the problems sit around, what's happening in Mogadishu is also happening in Montreal, it's also happening in Melbourne, Australia, and Melbourne, Florida at the same time.
Yes. We are such an interconnected world that for us to be true leaders, we need to not only be very aware of our local scenarios and contexts, but we need to understand beyond our context and connect with others in order to lead better, locally even. I love all the things that you talked about, and the thing that I love most about this, and what I'm hoping is going to be something that people internalize, is this journey only begins if we begin to imagine ourselves as leaders, that we can be leaders and that it's accessible to us, and that can be a goal. The question is, how do we learn to be leaders and defining leadership? It's completely accessible to each and every one of us.